Andrew Weissmann, let me start with you. I've seen you on TV basically since this news broke. I was on with you the hour after it broke. I went back and read it, and I pulled out from the original indictment this piece of projection and obsession that Carolyn Glenn, I think, can attest to as just a through line in the entire Trump story. But the original indictment has this line in it. I think it's on page 22. While meeting with Trump Attorney 1 and Trump Attorney 2 on May 23rd, Trump, in sum and substance, tells the following story, as memorialized by Trump Attorney 1, who we know is Evan Corcoran. Attorney, not named. He was great. He did a great job. You know what? He said that it was him, that he was the one who deleted all her emails, the 30,000 emails, because they basically dealt with her scheduling and her going to the gym and her having beauty appointments. And he was great. And so she didn't get in any trouble because he said that he was the one who deleted them. Trump related the story more than once that day. Trump's delusions about Hillary Clinton may have put in motion Trump's criminal conduct for which he's been indicted twice. You couldn't make it up in a bad mob movie.
So this is why I'm so enamored with you, because I, too, have that as my absolute favorite paragraph. It's paragraph 55. It's like etched in my brain. And it's where he basically turned to Mr. Corcoran, that's the former president of the United States, the former leader of the free world, and said, why can't you do for me what Hillary got her lawyer to do for her, which, by the way, is false. I mean, her lawyer was David Kendall.
Correct.
Anyone who knows David Kendall knows he is the salt of the earth. But leave that aside for a moment. He basically is like, why can't you just obstruct justice for me? And that is obstruction 1. You know, we say Earth 1 and Earth 2. That's obstruction 1. The new indictment has now obstruction 1 and obstruction 2, which is now let's destroy surveillance tapes. It is really just an incredible scene. And, you know, people always are sort of trying to relate this to mob cases, but this is just classic, you know, getting the cover up and obstructing. You actually have in this indictment discussions of the new defendant, De Oliveira and Nauta, doing a walk talk outside of the property because they're clearly concerned about surveillance. And so they take a walk talk to have a discussion where it's presumably about what's happening and why they can't get rid of the surveillance tapes because of Mr. Taveras saying, I'm not going along with that. So, I mean, this is really an incredible sort of crime story with the former president being at the heart of not just taking these documents, but then really engaging in, according to the government, a concerted and repeated pattern of obstruction. And he's clearly thinks that this is just a normal course of events. It'll be very interesting. I keep on sort of repeating this, that for judges who are overseeing him in terms of his bail conditions, this is the kind of thing that if you're a judge, you worry about a lot, because you have somebody out on bail who has clearly shown that he has absolute disregard and disrespect for the rule of law.
You know, Glenn, there's also always been this veil of reptilian protective conduct that has shrouded Trump's criminal exposure in previous investigations. He famously doesn't write things down. In this one, he's the only protagonist. There's no one else who calls them the beautiful mind boxes. There's no one else's mind who craves their contents. There's nobody else who wants them moved from point A to B. There's no one else who wants them hidden. There's no one else who wants them retained. And there's no one else who packed them or knows what's in them. He is the chief criminal in this now charged conspiracy.
Well, and when he says, when De Oliveira says the boss, he's not talking about Bruce Springsteen, right? I think I think less Godfather and more White House plumbers, right? Because there's a level of real panic here that you can sort of sense that kind of makes its way through the documents. And, you know, the thing that also makes Jack Smith such a difficult adversary for Trump, not just in the legal sense, but in the public arena, is how well these documents have been put together. There is a real narrative. You know, you can print it out like I did and annotate it, because it really has, unlike a lot of our news stories about these, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? And you get a real sense from this of Trump's mindset as we're going through this, and the slow dawning in his mind of how much trouble he's actually in. I think that's what's really interesting. And Nicole, you talked about his sort of obsessions driving all of this. Well, on the Bedminster document, that's an obsession with Milley, and an obsession with being demeaned by the military establishment that he has consistently railed against. So it's this. We're sort of, this entire case, in addition to having all these legal dimensions, again, is we're kind of in the mind of Donald Trump, and we're prey to his obsessions. And I think in the superseding indictment, what we're really seeing is him questioning his initial approach to this and understanding just how much trouble he was in.
Well, and I mean, look, Carol, that goes straight to his state of mind. And if you know how much trouble you're in, and if you want servers deleted, you know that you've done something wrong. And if you know that you've done something wrong, you don't have they were mine, I could declassify them by thinking them defense. You don't even have that in your delusional imagination. I mean, the conduct is so plainly incriminating. It really is, as many of the legal experts have been saying, really since last August, such a clean case.
You know, Nicole, I'm glad you said it the way you did, because I thought this was if the government could prove its original finding, which was in November of last year, if they could prove what they found then, that Donald Trump arranged to move things away from the storage room, as they found on the surveillance tape, and that they could prove that he instructed an aide to do that, and then ultimately they found a ton more records that Donald Trump was not complying with a criminal grand jury subpoena for those documents, then their case was really clean. But now these two additional pieces that we've learned sequentially from Jack Smith's fairly determined and methodical investigation, as Andrew said, obstruction one, actually, let's just make sure we don't return some of these, and telling aides who know that he asked them to do that. And then obstruction two, let's delete the server. If the government can prove these things, and obviously that my interpretation is they're trying to flip both Mr. Nauta and Mr. de Oliveira as key witnesses who are in a lot of trouble if they don't cooperate. If the government can prove these things and can point the finger directly at Donald Trump, this is a case in which, you know, mob bosses are typically behaving this way. Not former presidents, not even regular people. Regular people, upon receiving a grand jury subpoena, say, oh my goodness, I need to get a lawyer and quickly comply with this. They don't say, let's find a way to hide some of the records and then let's delete tape recordings that would show that some of this stuff was moved around at my direction. It was a clean case in November 2022, and it's gotten devastating since, again, with my caveat that if the government can prove it. And if Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira flip based on the criminal jeopardy they themselves face, I don't think there's anything else but like 1,000% conviction.
Wow. Wow. For you to go that far, Carol Leonnig, that's the first time I've heard you say that. Brandon Van Grack, I mean, I felt that the obstruction case mostly took place in full view once we saw sort of the extraordinary release of the application to the judge for the approval of the search itself. To see it in black and white is a stunning reflection of something I think you and Andrew have imparted on all of us, and that is the meticulousness. And I think Carol and Glenn have both reported that Jack Smith had talked to basically everyone at Mar-a-Lago. And there's this probably basic thing to folks like you and Andrew, but if you talk to everyone, you will find the one person who will take you inside the conspiring part of the criminal conspiracy. And in this case, it's employee number 4 who says, quote, I don't think I have the rights to do that. And the mistake Trump seems to have made in his White House, it was Cassidy Hutchinson. In his private club, it was employee number 4, is that when you're running such a sloppy conspiracy, all it takes is one person to put Jack Smith inside the room.
It's an important point in terms of understanding right now. What we're seeing is that the special counsel's investigation, it's active and ongoing. One of the questions in terms of why now, why, for example, weren't some of these allegations in the original indictment, and it's because they're still obtaining new evidence. In fact, it seems that some of this evidence is connected to perhaps Walt Nauda's phone, which the government had said it took them a while to get. So they're still moving along. And I think, though, all of that point in terms of the meticulousness and thoroughness of the investigation, I think goes to how serious this obstruction piece is. The other obstructive acts that are alleged in the original indictment, they're about hiding, not disclosing where the boxes are, not disclosing to the government the truth of who moved those boxes and at whose direction. Ultimately, that truth still exists. It's just now more difficult for the government to get that. When you're talking about destroying a server, destroying recordings, if that actually occurs, that evidence will no longer exist. You can no longer get that record. And I think it's one of the reasons why this strikes so many people as so compelling and why the special counsel felt the need to add it at this instance.